Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Confluential Live. It's been a minute, so we appreciate you guys joining today. I'm Kyler Cheatham, and I'll kind of guide our conversation today. But really, we're kind of digging into the importance of the relationship between IT and the business. And we talk about this a lot because it's absolutely critical to ensuring that we have any sort of success within our technology strategies, whether it's a new implementation, whether it's AI, whether it's middleware. It doesn't really matter. There has to be a layer at which they are communicating and that relationship is successful, and we'll kind of dig into that today. But before we do, just a few logistics. For this stream, we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you are following us, we really appreciate that. It helps kind of support the access to this kind of free advice that we're able to give you. So we appreciate you subscribing wherever you're watching us from today, and supporting our content. Also, we are usually live every Friday. It's been a little bit sporadic throughout the summer as we've added in some additional channels, as well as on LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, TikTok and Instagram. So you could kind of follow us over there too. But with that, I'll let Adam give a quick intro if you don't know him. Definitely join the conversation in the comments while he's talking to us about his intro, and you can let us know where you're joining from, and we'll get into it. So good morning, Adam.
Good morning. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. My name is Adam Cheatham. I'm the CEO of The Confluential. And this is probably one of my most core philosophical conversations as it pertains to what we do as a business and how we help our clients. Is the relationship between IT and the business. We talk a lot about the way things come together, confluences at The Confluential, and the relationship and the merging of IT and the business is something that if they're operating independently of each other and they don't come together in a strong confluence, the idea is that they don't do well as individuals as individual teams that don't rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of different problems that come from that, especially as it pertains to technology enablement. But if we focus on how they're related, that relationship begins to add value. And that add value, addition of value, is where the resources start to multiply. And that's really what we want to be able to do with our clients and help you guys on the line be able to do and emphasizing that relationship between IT and the business.
So why is it, from just digging into your philosophical approach here, why is it so important? Like, besides the obvious, right?
Yeah.
Like, we want to collaborate as a business. Like, that's pretty straightforward, right? But why specifically is this kind of multifunctional work stream so important?
Yeah, I think that we want to collaborate as an organization is a bit disingenuous if you don't have any meaning behind it. Like it needs an authenticity. We want to collaborate as a business means that we want to have hard conversations and we want to lean into those, right? We want to solve those problems together. Not we want to work with them so that they can stop being our problem. That's different, that right? There's a contention in that. So, from my perspective, when we start figuring out why that relationship is important, is because today, in order to run a business, you need to use technology. You're not
Mhm.
going to get around it. Even if you're using just spreadsheets, you're using technology. There's an enablement side of this. And if you grow past the point where spreadsheets can run your business, which most people do pretty quickly, then you have an issue with the relationship between function and technology. The business has a function, technology serves as an enabler. And then if you start to apply teams to those, you have your individual business teams, and then you have your individual IT teams. And if they don't have a good, strong relationship, they don't understand each other. So what happens is the business wants something in a software because they think that this thing, that
Mhm.
thing, or the other should be enabled. It's a pain point. It should be automated, but they don't understand what's available to them. And there are a lot of different consequences of that. On the flip side of it, you have IT. If they don't have a strong relationship with the business, They don't understand. So how can they possibly build a tool without understanding what it is the business needs? This is like somebody saying, "I'm gonna I'm gonna go out to dinner tonight,"
Mm-hmm.
and not telling the restaurant or the server what we actually want. Then what is it? Server's supposed to just bring us something and say, "Here it is. I got you some food," and they're like, I'm allergic to this." Like, well, you didn't tell me that. Now I got to throw it away. All of that costs money, right? On the flip side, somebody could come in and say, "I don't. I want this food item," and without saying, providing, say, a menu, we don't know if that item is actually something we can make, right? So you have to have a "what do I need" understanding. You have to have a "what's available" understanding, and then there's a conversation that is, how do we solve this problem that maybe we have a need and don't have a solution for yet, and now let's build something. Let's make some food.
I think that's that's certainly an interesting analysis. It's so much easier said than done, right? But getting into these comments, because we got a lot coming in, which we're always very excited about. We've got Arizona in here, which Jason's in Dallas, which I feel like, Mick, you might win that on the heat index, but I'll let you guys fight it out in the comments.
It's gonna be 101 here today. I know
Yeah,
that.
which I mean, it's our dry heat, right? We're in Colorado, dry heat, but I think this is, a good question. And from LinkedIn, has AI changed the dynamic between IT and the business? And I think even I would change this to say, like, how has IT and the business's relationship evolved now that technology has really become the backbone of the entire institution?
Well, yeah, I think that the simple answer is yes. It certainly has changed the dynamic, but that dynamic has been changing for quite some time, right? I'd say SaaS-based software started changing that dynamic quite some time ago. When you can create your own tools and have citizen developers within the business, the dynamic has changed, right? You have a department who says we do the development, and you have a business team that says not anymore, right? That conversation is now continuing to grow. Now it's we do all the development, and the business team say not anymore. We've got this SaaS-based software, and it's got its own AI tool. And guess what? We can also write our own stuff with Claude, right? You have low code, no code tools that
Yeah.
I can say, tell me how to build this tool, and Claude will give me scripts, right? It will help me write that code. And business users are going to continue to do that. That's only going to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you have a good, strong relationship with the business in that scenario can serve as an advisor, or the IT rather can serve as an advisor in the this is the safe way to use technology. Here are common technology practices, and saying, yeah, I see that you wrote this code. Awesome. Have you tested it? Or are you just going to launch it? Because that's that coaching, consulting type of relationship can be very helpful in that space and enabling citizen developers. And then you also, in that scenario, it depends on which side of the coin you're on from a trust perspective. I know some organizations that are using AI in this fashion, and IT is in full blown panic mode because they've got to take that tool away because the business is using it to access things that it shouldn't. There's a security problem here, right? How much of our information are we putting on the internet? Not because we're posting it for everybody to find, but
Sure.
from a perspective of um, it's available for a chat engine to use is
Mm-hmm.
information for learning. So there's a piece of that where if the trust is not there, it's seen as IT is taking this tool away from me. And what happens when it's funny. We'll use an example with our son, where he has this sleeping bag that he loves. It's a Triceratops sleeping bag. It's serves him quite well for many years. He is now taller than the sleeping bag. is long. So right, so this is sleeping bag is we have outgrown it, and I have had some trust issues on removing things from his room over time. With all right, we're going to take this. This can go away now. We've outgrown it, and so I told him we've outgrown your sleeping bag, and he says, "No, I haven't." And then the next, I go away for 5 minutes, and the next words out of his mouth were, "I hid my sleeping bag, so you can't give it away." Right? I use that as an example. I think it's funny, but as the business is going to do the same thing, right? You've taken my tools away in the past. We've had a distrusting relationship where I don't understand why you're taking my tools away. I only know that you're taking them. And I've been using them to serve a great function for quite some time. And now you want to take that away. So I'm just going to simply not tell you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the big part you're leaving out of that story is the Timmy trauma that you invoked on our 7-year-old son. He had this dinosaur that was bigger than me, not like stuffed animal dinosaur that he didn't like acknowledge the presence or existence of for about 6 months. So Timmy went to the Goodwill and we were all very happy about that. And then about 6 months later, he decided that he missed Timmy and he had no idea where he went. And this was a whole situation of like, if you're a parent, you know exactly what this type of like, while the kids are out of the house, we like clear out all their like toys that they haven't acknowledged. And so that's why, right, that trust was broken, right, in that relationship. You know, just like Adam's lemon tree. If you work for Adam, you know his affinity for his stupid lemon tree. So his son is a copy and paste of himself in that type of thing, and he looks exactly like him. They're copy and paste internally and externally. But I think the point of that situation is like that is a lot of trust to put in when we're still having tools evolve the way that they do, right? And
Yeah.
so when we have these quote unquote citizen developers, we're trying to bridge that gap between the business knows what they need. We need to enable those tools as much as we cautiously can.
Yeah.
However, though, right, we still have to respect IT's authority around those tools. And I think that is the part where it's so different with every single tool that we have, right? Especially as we go into this kind of quote unquote new normal where the tools are departmentally based a lot of times. So they're run and chosen by the department or the user group or all of those different things. And now it's IT's job, right, to manage all of these different pieces around it. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times it's about the consistency of maintaining that relationship as opposed to, building it the first time. So who does that, right? Are we talking about the PMO? Are we talking about like who is the facilitator of those relationships in organizations that you see that have a very technical, mature ability to implement these tools, use them because of that relationship?
So I think it has to happen at multiple levels, right? So you have PMOs that have a relationship with one another. You have individuals that have a relationship with one another. You have teams that have relationships with one another. That all three of those levels are important. Um, at the high level business IT conversation, what are the projects that the business needs, and how is IT going to solve them, and when, right? You also have the functional area teams and the tool owner teams on the dev side that have relationships, right? They understand one another in a perfect world where the business knows enough about what their tools can do to use them effectively and suggest enhancements. And IT knows, and the dev teams know enough about how the business uses those tools to build them. But this is one of the worst things that Steve Jobs did for IT was say out loud, "People don't know what they need until I tell them." Right? You're not Steve Jobs. You don't know what the business needs until they tell you, right? That's their job. Your job is to then say, on the IT side of it, this is how I can solve that problem. On the flip side, though, the business doesn't, there, just because you use the tool every day doesn't mean you're the expert in it. You don't know what that tool can and can't do. You don't know what can't be built into it at the dev level. So in my mind, that's a collaborative conversation at the team. Well, Salesforce is a great example on the what can we build in Salesforce for our business users. There's a sales and marketing team, a sales tool. There's a strong correlation in that. And knowing your team on both sides is important. And then you have the individual relationship level that all of this is built on, right? If I think you're out to get me,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter which side of the fence you sit on, I'm not going to trust you. And that breaks down the trust at every organizational level when we don't have conversations and we just create a you took my tool away and so now I don't trust you. I don't trust you because you took it, right? There's a personality in
Yeah.
that. So
I hear you. I do. To a point, right? And you know better than me, but I think this is I really empathize with this question from Jason. You say it's IT's job, but how many organizational lines are getting blurred these days due to cloud service delivery model and OpEx budget, right? And adding on to that, what is the point of even having an IT department if you're not going to let them play the you know, main type of leader in technology based decisions?
yeah, well, I think that the answer to this really is the lines are getting blurred, and the conversation needs to be more collaborative, so that we're having this not as a standoff, but in a collaborative conversation. Procurement's a great example in this particular question when we're talking about budgets, right? Procurement does a fantastic job of saying this is what we're going to buy, and this is when we're going to buy it, and this is what we're approved for, and what we're not. But what procurement sometimes misses is the relationship with the IT side of the house, right? So we're going to buy software. This business user has a budget to buy this software. Let's call it Salesforce. Let's stick with that, right? Sales team has a budget. Buying Salesforce fits within their budget. And so they go to procurement, and procurement gets them all, everything they need. There's a purchase order involved, blah, 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 blah. And now we have Salesforce. And procurement forgot, what about IT? What if we have a CRM? Right? Like it's, we already have that, and now you just, yeah, I get it. You blew half your budget on something that we don't need. That's not anybody's fault um, by individual, but there's an operational failure in that, and saying we had a tool for this, and now we're double paying for it. So those lines getting blurred are also obscuring our visibility and being able to see what's available and what are we already paying for. And what ends up happening in that scenario is the CRM tool that we just duplicated in Salesforce or whatever we bought. Nobody realized that we just bought a new one. Sales is now they got their citizen developers on it, and they're off on their own, and they're not having conversations with IT. So IT is maintaining this other sales function, and we're continuing to pay for it, right? So now that relationship is costing money because it doesn't exist. So that's when we start thinking about OpEx issues and blurring those lines, that cloud service delivery model that allows for more direct access to the business users is creating a scenario where IT's the bad guy. But we can't think of them that way. We have to remember that they have a function, and there's a reason behind it. You got to eat your broccoli. Why? Not because I said so. That's the wrong answer. The Bluey episodes come to mind on that one. But because it's part of what your body needs. You can't buy that software. Why? Because they are exposing people's secrets to the World Wide Web. I didn't know that. Or you can't buy that tool because we have one that does that. Have you thought about it? Oh, I didn't even realize that. Those types of things. So I think
So
there's
if
another. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so like just digging into that, is that procurement's job or is that IT's job?
It's everybody's job. That's the part of the relationship, right? So is it your job to raise our kids or mine, right? It's ours.
Mine,
And so,
obviously.
well, it's our job, right? So we build a home together. Yes, this is the same thing. We build a business together between the business and IT, and it's everybody's job to collaborate on that. Can one person miss and create problems and their piece of the function? Sure, right. In that scenario, procurement missed by not asking IT and not involving IT in that conversation, or maybe IT doesn't. Maybe IT stops coming to the meetings. Right. There's also that part of it. Relationships need to be managed actively. So, and that's where I think that Jason's got a question here. People, process, governance, or otherwise. And I was going to go back to his previous question on how is governance risk evolving and how outcomes be better or worse in the near term.
Oh, sorry. I lost that one.
No worries. This one covers it as well. But the thought process in my mind is, the governance risk is evolving as the complexity and the relationships evolve, right? So
Hmm.
access points to your business are expanding every day, and that doesn't include just cyber access points, right? Somebody's browsing, hey, I got this problem. I asked ChatGPT, how do I solve it? And I get this list of tools that I could use. And now all of a sudden I'm shopping. And if we aren't actively maintaining our relationship, it's dying, right? That's the challenge. And that's why it's so difficult, especially to put your thumb on the health of it,
Hmm.
because if the relationship isn't being actively managed, it's difficult to see where it's headed.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about governance, right? Because that's a big sticking point between these two.
Mhm.
Who owns governance? What does that mean?
Which part of it, I guess, is the first question, right? So, is this a new software system that we want to buy?
Sure.
So in that scenario, there's a budget conversation involved in it. There's a procurement conversation involved in it. There's an architecture conversation involved in it, and there's a requirements conversation part of it, right? So, and from a governance perspective, those are four different things that are owned by four different teams. So, who owns the governance on the whole? We've got in this scenario, you've likely ended up in a spot where you have a need for a governance team, a PMO, a center of excellence. Call it whatever you want. They're all the same function as governance, and so that's a leadership type of thing where when we start thinking about who's accountable and who's responsible, I love this racy conversation that Avery's bringing up, right? So there are certain roles in each piece, and governance isn't often over everything. It's over pieces of it, right? The business owns the requirements. IT owns the delivery of the enhancements, and the two of those accountabilities need to come together to drive an effective solution. Does that make sense?
Yes. Sorry. I was trying to find the racy one. I can't find that either. So I
Well,
guess
we're a little rusty today.
I know I've been doing this for years, and apparently I am unable to find it. But so let's dig into that a little bit, the racy conversation.
Yeah.
So because again, we went from, 10, 15 years ago, IT, the traditional IT department, they were the order takers, right? They were
Mhm.
the servers at the restaurant, right? And whatever the business said, a lot of times was what was on the menu. Or, they kind of established that, and there was like two very different organizational structures around the two. And then they started to blend, right? With like what we're seeing in the comments here, with SaaS moving with a less of an enterprise system and more of, everybody has their own kind of specialized system. And then even on down into that, now everyone has like departmental AI agents and all of those different things. So IT is kind of spinning, and the ones that we've seen become good CIOs, good leaders, right? A modern CIO, as we call it, a lot of times, are very well aware that they are business leaders, right? They're not just technical leaders. So when it comes to governance, right, is that something that you then are looking to the leadership team to establish, or should you maybe even outsource it to, like, someone that can come in with an objective third party? Because that's what we've really seen kind of
Yeah.
in where the bigger leverage of big four consulting is moving. Like, let us be your auditors, let us manage your government. And I know you don't want to talk about those guys or whatever, we don't care about them, but I'm wondering if that actually can be an option, or if there isn't a situation in which you're too close to understand what your governance should be.
I think that if you're too close to understand your governance, then it's pretty effective, right? So like if you're that close to your governance, it exists for you to be that close to it, right? So that's an interesting perspective. But I think that at the end of the day, um, your business shouldn't be governed by an external entity. I mean, let me caveat that there are governments of the world that keep us safe from lots and lots of things, and there are laws and rules and regulations that prevent businesses from taking advantage of consumers and those sorts of things. So that's important as it pertains to what happens inside of your business. Assuming that our ethical reasoning is strong and all of those things, you shouldn't be dependent on an outside party to create and manage your governance. I don't believe in outsourcing that. However, what we do is we help build that function, and we build the roles, we stand up the sticks and all of that stuff. And then we plan for migrating out of those roles that we built and putting the right people in it. That's how a consulting firm should work, is they build something for you and then they hand it over to you in a way that you're able to use it. And that's what we're doing with governance programs, delivery management programs, change control boards, centers of excellence, EPMOs, PMOs, whatever. They're all serving the same function, and they're all in a how do we create a governance function that uses the relationship between the IT and the business to thrive as an organization. And then that way, your business and your organization continues to grow and expand within technology enablement because the relationship is strong and the governance is there and built on trust. There are a couple of comments here as well on the position in this. From my perspective, what position that's most overlooked in facilitating this relationship is the business relationship manager role, right? There's a weird inference in this that it has to come from IT, but I don't think that that's the right space for it. It has to be in the middle, which whether IT owns it or not isn't necessarily important as much as it is. This is an intentional action to create and maintain a thriving relationship between the business and IT. Now, you have different roles like business analysts, project managers, product owners, scrum masters. All of those are involved in this thriving relationship environment and ecosystem. But the intent and purposeful management of the relationship, I think, is that BRM type of role. You could probably have an ITRM if you wanted to. Somebody who's responsible for maintaining the relationship with IT. But at the end of the day, the function is going to be pretty similar in that we're going to have regular conversations about what's going on, how we doing, what do you need, what are you thinking you might need one day, so that when you ask for something from the business side, it comes with the right information.
Yeah. I think that it's almost like saying, like, we love analogies here. Back to your restaurant analogy, like, who's more important, the chef or the owner?
Or the chef or the server, right? Who's more important than, like, when you think about it?
The
Or
chef.
you have Well, maybe. It depends, right? They're all important in this conversation. You have the customer, you have the server, and you have the kitchen, right? Three different roles. And which one's the most important? Could you have the customer talking directly to the kitchen? Sure, there are restaurants built on that model. Are they? What is their function? Is to pump out small things quickly, right? We're talking about fast casual type of restaurants. Yeah, Chipotle is a great example. Walk right up. You know, the relationship between the customer and the kitchen is direct, and we're pumping things out. Small. I mean, I guess Chipotle's burritos aren't small, but small things. And there's a lot of prep involved in that to be able to handle that. But you start talking about increasing the complexity of a meal and increasing the complexity of the request. Now a server gets involved, right? Where you have somebody says, I want to have a soup, a salad, an entree, and a dessert. Let's just go full board. We're having a 4 course meal, and we're looking at this from a perspective of I need to match it with a wine. Um, uh, Maybe I even want to match it with a wine per course, and now our conversations got a lot more complicated. Do we have some customers who really understand what wines pair with what foods? Sure, fantastic. Do they know all the ingredients in all of those dishes, or are they guessing at what's probably in each of those dishes when they match a wine to each individual one? Right? They're probably know enough uh,
Mm-hmm.
in their ballparking. Right? As I'm eating fish, so I'm going to pair white wine, whatever. Now, if we want to get down to the varietals and the ingredients, the server becomes a piece of that conversation, right? We've got a bit more complicated in our relationship, and that server is that business relationship manager role that sits between. I know what goes into this. I know all of the ingredients in all of these dishes, and I know my whole wine list. And so you come to me and you say, I want these things. What wine pairs with that? Or just as much. I can't decide between this food and that food. Which one's better? And of course, as a server, I'm going to say, well, they're all delicious. Are you looking for this, or are you looking for that? You say, well, I'm looking for something light, this, that, and the other. Well, let's go with this one. Right now, we have a relationship manager who knows both sides of the table and can help facilitate this experience. There's a sense of trust. The kitchen trusts that the person ordering this food understands what they're ordering now. The customer understands that there's a relationship with the kitchen, that they know what they're making, and that it's going to match their desires as far as what's being asked for. And we have somebody who delivers that to them appropriately. That's a different relationship and a different complexity in representing the business and IT than Chipotle, which is I got all the ingredients right here. If you expect somebody from Chipotle to know all of the ingredients in each of those things and where some of those things are sourced from, good luck. But that's not what you're asking for. You're asking for a burrito with some things in it. They're all right here. Let's do this one, that one, and the other. And now all of a sudden, we're in more of a simplistic relationship between IT and the business that is represented by the relationship, right? It's direct. The need is not as complex. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're skipping one specific piece, which is the owner. Like, who sets the vision, right, for these standards? Because then you have a lot of different agendas, right, that you're
Yeah.
balancing in here. And if the business relationship manager doesn't understand that agenda, right, and
Hmm.
how each person does that, then how are they able to, get where they're going,
Yeah.
right?
But I think that's an important point, right? Who owns the restaurant? Who owns the business? The business, as in collectively, business and IT. Who owns the organization? And who's responsible for setting that strategic vision, right? It's like You go to a fine dining steakhouse, and don't be surprised if 75% of their dishes available are beef, right? So that's a decision that's set. The same way, if you are in metals manufacturing, don't be surprised if a lot of your IT requests are oriented towards the procurement of raw materials that go into a casting, right? And being able to understand what a production schedule looks like and how do we improve our production scheduling across multiple sites and those types of things. On the flip side, if we're more of a burger bar, what do we expect from that? Well, it's I I don't have this level of complexity from a planning perspective because I'm not offering 4 courses, and I don't need to know what scheduling for 4 courses looks like. I need to get burgers out the door, and I need to be able to serve drinks with them. Same as, you know what? We're a distribution organization. Not to say that the distribution organizations can't get wildly complex, right? Look at Amazon. Um, but we're a distribution organization that has a different type of focus. And so this is where all of our requirements are going to come from. We're going to look at being able to get things from one warehouse to another as quickly as possible. So,
And I think that's going to be as quickly as possible, right? Like from that standpoint, but as quality as possible and as
yeah.
regulated as possible, and all of those different pieces. So I think that's a really really helpful way to understand it. So I'm curious, like, how do you know if you are having some contention between those teams? Like, what are obviously, like, Janice from, accounting hates Fred from IT, and we know that, and, like, we have all those kind of areas. But if you're sitting on the C-suite, right, or you're director level and above, what are some signs that we've got some healing work to do here or something?
Um, how much do you trust the folks on the other side? What's your relationship with them? Do they know what you want? Do you know what? Do you trust their answers? I mean, this is like, how do you know you have a good friend or a bad friend? Can you trust them with a secret? Do you know what's going to happen? Right. So that's a such a it's an interesting question because it goes back to the relationship between IT and the business is at all levels of the organization. So the CEO and the CIO, right? Are they talking about strategy? Is that conversation involved? Does the CEO trust that the CIO is going to be able to execute his strategy within technology? Does the CIO trust that the CEO is giving them the resources to do that? Right. So there's that piece of it. Now we go down the level, the VP level. Our executives speaking in a way where they are having conversations that are active? Do our executives on both sides of the fence know each other? That's a good start, right? Executive relationships are funny in that I trust you and your team to do your job under your leadership, right? There's an important piece of that. Does the business have a track record for saying you're doing this way? And ask an executive, right? Ask them. I promise you, the vast majority of executives on the business side will tell you straight up. Some of them more forward than others, but they'll tell you straight up how things are going between the business and IT. They'll have an opinion on it for sure. And some of them will say things like, "Well, that's why do you think I have my own team of developers?" Answer that question. If your business side has its own team of developers, um, that is not it's not a direct relationship, but there is a possibility that you should be asking whether or not they have a strong relationship with IT. Um,
Okay.
so if
Well,
you're
good. I'm glad it won't be a secret for for us to know. So, if you're in a situation,
Mhm.
and a lot of times this happens to us because we kind
Yeah.
of get pulled in between. Sometimes we're brought in by the business,
Mhm.
sometimes we're brought in IT,
Yep.
right? And a lot of times that's because they think that we're going to tell the other one the way that it should be done, and advocate for that, which we obviously never do. But if you're trying to kind of heal that relationship, or we need to be more technically mature so that we can do things like, automate 15% of our processes or do all of these different pieces. How are you going to start in making sure that you can redevelop that? Because if we don't have that trust, that sounds like a very significant problem.
Yeah. Well, the first part of it is I think that if you have rational people, you tell them that we know we have a problem, right? They're gonna admit that too. Like it's the business that has their own team of developers is not gonna be shy usually about telling you I've got my own team of developers because IT's not doing their job, and so I'll do it for them. Now our problem with that is going to end up being, um, usually in that scenario, if we have a team of developers, we have a track record, not just for bypassing IT, but it's you don't get a team of developers without starting with one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I got a developer to help me with these things because IT's a little slow on the uptake. And that developer had some successes, and now we're going to add another one, and now we're going to add another one, and now we have a team of developers, right? And it's not often that the business just says, you know what, yeah, we are going to hire a team of developers. We're going to do that all from scratch. It grows. It grows based on business successes, right? So in a lot of those cases, what ends up happening is now our business owner says, I built this team because IT can't do their job, and I decided to just go ahead and do it for them. And I have a track record of success in doing this. Now we have an uphill battle of being able to say, first and foremost, we have a relationship problem. I'm not entirely sure where it comes from because in a lot of those scenarios, it is because IT didn't deliver fast enough. They weren't effectively resourced or whatever it is you want to call it. I have had scenarios where I've sat in front of an executive and said, I brought in my own developers because I spent 6 months and IT gave up trying to figure out my problem. I hired two guys and I fixed it in three.
Mm-hmm.
Guys or gals, of course.
Of
Um,
course.
but how do you argue with that? You asked me to do a job, and now I'm doing it, right? So,
I guess the argument I would have in thinking of an executive team is because we have already paid developers. We're paying two levels of developers, which is a specialized skill set, right?
mhm,
Which is expensive. So why can't you just use the developers that we already have?
because they're not responsive.
Okay.
Right now, there's a relationship management function in that that's missing. Because it's not about the number of bodies that are allocated to this. Obviously, there are bodies allocated to it somewhere, and something is getting done. It's there that goes up to a certain level of leadership and function between business and IT, where the team leveling is not successful because likely there's a governance gap in the relationship there. I've created my own team of developers because my IT counterparts aren't able to solve this problem quickly. It might be because we have some issues with capacity. It might
Mm-hmm.
be some issues with um, capability.
Mm-hmm.
It might be some issues with understanding, right? If I know my function better because I live it every day,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to devise better solutions to it. And then if I have somebody who's doing that and developing, we have what we're looking to have on both sides of the fence, right? Developers that understand the business that understands technology. All that's happened in this scenario is we just put them both on the same side of the fence, and within the same team. And now we have citizen developers who are going out and doing some things and some stuff. A lot of them vibe coding, right? So now we have that challenge where they're doing these things, they're connected to the internet, and security is left out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Testing and all of the software development life cycle rigors, governance. Why do we test? Do we test in production? There are lots of business folks that are testing in production. I can tell you that. But it's working.
Mm-hmm.
When we see the problem live, and so we fix it live. So
Yeah, I mean, until it breaks 10 more things, but you're still going to fix it live, right? I think you guys are right in here in the comments. I'm going to get into some of them here. So, and this is a great observation from Jason. The business-led solutions Adam described may also look differently from what IT would deliver, right? Architecture, security, scalability, maintainability. And I think, yes, it looks different. I think I'm more concerned, is it right? Right? Does it meet the overall quality standards of what technology means? Again, if you're going to have those citizen developers, I still go back to why even have an IT team at all, right? If you're not going to utilize them to be able to be a part of this structure, and that's kind of what we're talking about. I think it needs to be said that, as we always say, every single business is wildly unique, right? Especially in 2026, we find a lot of businesses that have a hard time finding technology, sourcing an enterprise level technology because they are so specific.
oh
And
yeah.
that's just kind of the modern thing we live in. But when it comes down to it, having the ability to analyze and diagnose what that means for your organization as opposed to what worked for the organization across the street is going to be so critical in really understanding and maintaining that.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a happy coincidence that Ryan's comment follows that the conflict and friction seems to have also grown with AI users and business teams that don't want to wait or be hampered by IT, right? This this is that question we had earlier. How does IT change this relationship? It enables folks more quickly. And from a business perspective, I think that there's a characteristic here that's worth elaborating on. I'm going to paint with broad strokes on this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's meant to offend anybody, but from a perspective of the business is designed to fail quickly, right? We're going to try things, and if they don't work, we're going to try something else. And if that doesn't work, we're going to try something else. Part of the function is that we're trying things and we are iterating on the fly with how many folks on the business side are making it up as they go, right? That's happening in real time in businesses across the world. They're making it up as they go. They test it. They got a live feed to it. It didn't work. These pieces I like. This worked out great, and we move on. AI is accelerating that our ability to do things and tinker in real time. IT has a characteristic on the flip side, which needs to be precise and takes time, right? IT's function is to write code that has the lowest level of defects possible and is functional to a certain degree of precision and accuracy that meets a large, if not complete, percentage of the requirements. We are asking IT to be perfect and then wonder why it is they can't keep up with us because we're accepting on the business side a high degree of failure rate.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that right there is where I think the strongest argument for an agile development methodology exists. Because if you want to run a 3-month waterfall project, just 3 months is fast for this, right? But if you want to run a 3-month waterfall project that's got 10 things in it, you use all this time to develop these 10 precise things.
Mm-hmm.
I can, if I got 10 things and you do the 3 months ish math, so I can do three and a half things a month ish. The business is going to go do one a week,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to know which ones are working and which ones have failed before you're done building any of them. Built, tested, and delivered on 5 things within the span of 6 weeks in this scenario. IT is 50% done with 10 things. Nothing's complete, and they're halfway there on all of them. We don't know if any of them are going to work at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the business has already gone off and figured out which ones work and which ones don't. I think I think there's a lot of that which is unfair to IT in saying we expect perfection
Mhm.
while we aren't applying the same standard on the business side. I don't believe, so to be fair, I don't believe that the same standard of perfection should be applied to the business side of things. I think that IT should be given a little bit more leeway to design and deliver solutions that have some room for interpretation. That's what ought to be happening in my head. But and then we wonder why IT can't keep up. So we're not
Yeah.
allowing them to tinker.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I think that that's absolutely true. And I mean, I think again, it's funny that like Jason and Ryan keep going like comment for comment and like continuing this conversation because they're on different channels. Like they don't even see. So like so it's so great. It's so interesting. But citizen developers still need appropriate governance frameworks. Otherwise, we're just living in the wild, wild west, right? And that's kind of what this process is meant to pull up, right? What are the governance frameworks, and what does that mean for everyone's workability process, right? If we need to move to an agile delivery, that is not something that we just go to sleep and the next morning we're an agile IT team. As much as everybody wants to make that sound like a cool, keynote, that's not how that works. And
Yeah.
so being able to have that framework and compliance and risk, especially in the industries we work in, right? We work in a heavy industry. So compliance and regulation are going to be the forefront.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone the other day in finance and gaming, right? And she was telling me how much she's always pushed to go outside compliance. And like if they flag us, they flag us. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a $40 million flag. So I feel like we should pay attention to that flag. Right. And so I think that's a huge piece of it. And then the compliance and rigor comment here is on non-business teams. So we're talking about like compliance, legal, those types of different teams.
QA,
Yeah, exactly.
T.
There we go. Keep going. Keep it going.
I'll stop there.
Be fast, prototype, learn, but don't use a prototype within your policies and compliance and impact procedures. And I think that that's key right there.
Oh yeah. So there's a bit of this that we can separate though, right? Using a prototype policy or guessing on policy, and that's the framework that defines what's successful and what's not from a policy as in a strategy perspective. Policy is a reflection of strategic objectives, right? So if we are testing our policies and our strategies and applying some sense of completeness to them while we're building something, now we're tinkering everywhere, right? This is like changing the rules of the game while you play it. And that we can't operate in that scenario because that's like saying, all right, well, um, instead of hitting baseballs, now we're scoring touchdowns. Like we don't even have a ball for that, right? So
Mhm.
we can't change the rules as we go. We have to divide them effectively, but then they create boundaries for us to become more flexible within a prototype within. So we can be fast. We know what our measurement is. You can do things like tinker with torpedo-shaped bats and see if they work in real life. Or you could try the wildcat formation and you can blow out the Patriots because nobody's ever seen anything like it. And now you have an advantage because the rules on both sides are the same, right? That's the key to it. Now we can tinker, and now we know what effective looks like within that governance model. I think that's the key to it. You had to allow both sides to be able to figure out quickly what's working and what's not, and what's an acceptable governance model. And in a lot of ways, we're not applying the same governance rigor to citizen developers as we are to IT developers. And that's on the flip side, a bit unfair. It's a disadvantage to being able to deliver quickly.
Can you assess for the health of these two relationships? Should you assess?
Absolutely, you should always assess what's the relationship. That should be an ongoing activity. And so, yes, you can. What your assessment should be is the delivery of services to the business working effectively. Now, that's a weird way of making it seem like this is IT's responsibility, but we go to root cause analysis when we say if the answer is no, why? Well, that's because they came in here ordering something that we don't make, right? That those ingredients don't exist here, or they came in and ordered something with zero level of specificity, and then told us we were wrong when we gave them what they said they wanted, right? Is the business providing good requirements and good definition of what they're looking for? Or is IT kind of having to wing it on delivering something? And now if that scenario is unfolding, we have a bad relationship, right? We don't understand each other. IT's not talking to the business about what you actually need. The business isn't talking about the IT about what's available, and we're failing. So the marker is IT delivering to the business what it needs when it needs it, and the root cause analysis digs into where the relationship issues are on that, because the only way of measuring it is do the results match the need for quality, and then you dig in through the idea.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to start, right? Like I always like to leave our lives with
Just reading rides.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
how things work.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. We don't switch from baseball to football mid-game. That's not how organizations work. What do you mean? Wow, I need to reconsider some of the companies I know. And that is a big core reason for a lot of times that we get involved, because we're running around all playing different games, right? And we all have different balls, and we're not getting anywhere, especially now that we can't rely on, our 30-year-old green screen, right? Or something like that, our older legacy technology, because we're trying to move to something that's more sophisticated. And I think that's a big piece. So if you have questions about that, definitely shoot us a DM and we can have those types of conversations. Any final thoughts before we break, Adam, that you want to wrap up here?
This is a soft topic, right? It's not an easy thing to figure out, and that's okay, right? That's the other piece of this that I spend a lot of time reminding clients. Look, we just had a big conversation. This is the first time we've had that conversation. I don't expect it to be solved right away, right? This is not an overnight solve. So let's think of it as a long term thing. We had a conversation this week with a client. We had an initial pilot intake discussion, and we had one team member who was extremely frustrated. He's like, I just read a 6-page document from the business, and I still don't know what it is. I still don't know what they're asking for. There's a problem in there, right? But if you look and listen to the tone of the conversation, it sounds like the conversation is the problem, but it's not. That's a very good conversation unfolding. We've identified an issue that we can start going and solving. The problem isn't that so and so is frustrated. It's in expressing that frustration. The problem is that we have an issue that we need to solve for creating the right level of information so that we can make better decisions on it. That was a fantastic conversation. But if you just read the tone of it, it sounds bad. It's not. We're here to have hard conversations, and we're here to accept that we're not going to get it right the first time.
For sure. Well, speaking of great conversations and complex conversations, I think that's a good way to leave this, right? Remember, it is not solved overnight. If you need help navigating it, definitely give us a call. I want to thank you guys for all of these great comments here. That's what kind of frames this, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what we say. It matters what's best for your business. And if you can understand that, that's how you get to that level of being able to assess it with all of these great opinions. So thank you so much for supporting our message and helping us get the word out. We will see you next week on Friday, same time, same place. So definitely follow our channels or subscribe so that you'll get notified when we are live again. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, friends.
Bye.
Bye.